General Understanding is brought to you by Dominion Energy's Talent Acquisition Team and Veterans Resource Group. We're proud to share our military podcast with you. We invite you to visit dominionenergy.com/military to learn more about our military programs and Dominion Energy careers to find the career you love.
Welcome to General Understanding, a podcast for Dominion Energy employees where we speak with individuals who support our military and veteran communities and where we will recognize veteran and other military-connected employees who are helping to transform the way we do business. In today's episode, we speak with Air Force Colonel Denise Deno Cooper of the PsychArmor Institute. PsychArmor is a nonprofit organization that offers critical resources and online training videos delivered by national subject matter experts who are fiercely committed to educating the civilian community about military culture. Topics that we'll cover in today's episode include military culture, PsychArmor's 15 Things Veterans Want You to Know video, and business and personal values that military veterans bring to their civilian employers. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
I'll hold your hands and you hold mine. Connect and walk ourselves up to the top. Support and that will develop till we can rise above exploitation and pain.
Welcome to General Understanding, a conversation for betterment for all employees to learn more about veterans, a platform for unity, embracing communities, perfect opportunity to value you and me, those who serve their country and fought for our rights, to the family and friends of those who sacrifice. This is dedicated to all, and by the way, I salute our armed forces every day as your holiday.
Connect and walk ourselves up to the top. Support.
I'm your host, Matt Kellum, Military and Recruitment Program Coordinator for Dominion Energy. And today we have with us Air Force Colonel Denise Deno Cooper from PsychArmor Institute. Welcome, Deno. I appreciate you being with us here on our first episode.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Matt. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. Yeah. So obviously, you're a very special guest that we wanted to have on for our first episode. I know you'll have a chance to introduce yourself and also the PsychArmor Institute. But PsychArmor Institute is doing a lot of really good things as it pertains to education and training videos, and really helping create good awareness. Not only with civilian businesses and employers like Dominion Energy, but just really the military connected community in general. So let's start off, if you don't mind, maybe introduce yourself a little bit better and your military background, and then also how you got connected to PsychArmor Institute.
Sure. Well, thanks, Matt. I'll try to keep it brief. I'll start with your last question. I'm a military officer in transition, and through a transition program that was just started by OSD, Department of Defense, it's called the Employment Education Initiative. And so in my case, I had some unexpected serious medical issues that prevented me going the whole 30. And so as a wounded warrior, I got entered into this program like all the services allow. And I'm learning some new skills that I didn't have as a senior 06 in the Air Force. And it's an educational program, a transition program. And I get to parlay some of my experiences in education to this nonprofit that I feel so strongly about. It's part of I guess I forget the exact number, but let's say there's like 3,000 military connected nonprofits, whether it's caregivers, wounded warriors, but PsychArmor is an award-winning nonprofit for the online education that they do. My background by trade is kind of 50-50, half academic and half combat support. So I've commanded downrange and in garrison at the 05 and 06 level. And so I feel very unique that way because I understand the educational world, but I also understand what it means to lead large organizations.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And you're right, whether it's PsychArmor, Dominion Energy, or any other organization out there, I mean, there's certainly value that a transitioning service member or veteran can bring. And that's actually one of the things we'll touch on towards the end of the discussion. You'd mentioned to me before the Employment Initiative program that PsychArmor has. And I think that's an excellent opportunity for you and others to have. Dominion Energy has some similar initiatives that we've kicked off where they're skill bridge related through the Department of Defense. So obviously there's great value in being able to meet and then be able to work with a transitioning service member before they get out. But then, of course, someone who's separated, like myself, I separated a number of years ago. We all bring good value to the organizations. Tell us, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit more about the PsychArmor Institute and just in general, what is the purpose of the organization and maybe the benefit to not only civilian employers, but the military connected community as well.
Oh, well, like most great nonprofits, it started because it identified a need and a gap. And that gap was how communities helped and supported military connected members, whether they were the veteran, the retiree, the spouse, the caregiver, the children. And in cities where is a large military presence, like San Diego or Washington, D.C., or San Antonio, where I live, they do that pretty well. But a lot of times in these smaller communities, separated, those who have separated may go to healthcare providers or employers who don't really have that knowledge base, whether it's just the basic lingo or the culture. And so when organizations that are for profit, for example, seek to recruit or retain, they're at a bit of a disadvantage. So PsychArmor offers online courses that assist a variety of people in the ecosystem.
So I have two questions for you. I guess the first just being an acknowledgement of I was actually introduced to, as were some of my partners at Dominion Energy, PsychArmor a few years ago, and I had really had no clue. To be honest, I might have actually ignored the first email or two, and then finally I became really curious. I'm like, well, wait a minute. We have a need and a desire to educate our leaders and employees within the company. Let me look into this. And excuse me, as soon as I did, I was so impressed by just the content of the videos and the breadth of the videos, and so anyway, I was just very impressed. And selfishly for us, I realized that I didn't have to come up with all this information. There was an opportunity to reach out to and partner with PsychArmor, and that PsychArmor as an organization does provide that, and we have what PsychArmor calls a partner page. So we actually have a partner page for our Dominion Energy employees where they can go and access. So anyway, just that was not a question, but more of acknowledgement of how strong the product and the organization is. The question that I have for you, just out of curiosity, roughly how many educational videos does PsychArmor have out there in all the different categories? Even if it's a wild guess.
Sure. Well, there's product lines or courses that are, I think, what makes it very interesting to me, that are dedicated to healthcare providers. And then there are some that are dedicated to supervisors who might want to be a veteran ready or a veteran ready provider. And so then there are courses that are very, very specific about a particular need of a military member with a service dog, for example, and how you would have that conversation and understand that issue. So they're very, very broad in the sense that there are so many ways to support military connected members, whether they're students, whether they're caregivers, whether they're retirees, they're wounded warriors like myself, or our kiddos who, they sacrifice a lot for the country. So all aspects of that is, hundreds of courses at PsychArmor. has to offer. And they are plugged in with the smartest people in the industry and the thought leaders and the influencers. So they really have exceptional content.
I, I totally agree, and it's interesting when I'm going through and watching some of the videos, and I'll go back and watch some of them, over and over. You're right. I kind of smile like, oh, I know that person, and so that's one thing is that the military connected community can become a very small world quickly, and it is always nice to see familiar faces or even to see some new faces that you didn't realize were so involved with supporting the military connected community. And one interesting thing, obviously folks who will listen to this might listen to this, tomorrow or the next week or even months from now. But what's interesting is Dominion Energy has a really strong diversity and inclusion program. And through that program, we have, I think, 9 employee resource groups. And actually, there are a couple employee resource groups working together now to do a feature or a session on service dogs. So obviously that's not a military or veteran specific thing, but it's really kind of a cool opportunity for our veteran resource group and the others to work together. And so point being is it's really nice to hear that the content that PsychArmor offers goes even down that sector for education purposes.
That's a good point. Just to add on to
Sure.
that, that during this COVID global pandemic, there was a short video put together because military connected individuals, through just the kind of the lifestyle, have developed some resiliency about isolation and about separation. So we're able to contribute to that conversation because some of those skills applied to this new world as we know it. So you're right. I can see how the content would be generalizable beyond military connected issues. I think that's neat.
Yeah, well, good, definitely a good point, and that's something that certainly work on our end to introduce our employees and leaders to all the various content. One that I wanted to highlight specifically with you is a video called 15 Things Veterans Want You to Know. So just specifically some of the topics that we want to cover, here in this discussion is military culture, Inculturation, and I'll have you share a little bit more about that. Again, 15 Things Veterans Want You to Know. That's one of the videos that really, when I first was introduced to PsychArmor, that's the one that actually caught my attention. And the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, yes, I wish my peers, that maybe don't know the military well could see this. But then finally, the value of a veteran in any civilian organization, whether it's the business values or personal values. So can you tell us just a little bit more about military culture and enculturation and what that means to a civilian employer or organization?
Well, I think it's our shared goal, Matt, that we'd make this interesting enough that some of your colleagues will want to go over and watch the whole video for themselves. And so we'll leave a little bit of a teaser out there so that they may feel so inclined to do that. And it's not a huge time investment, and it's really good, solid data because PsychArmor recognized a gap and used a qualitative data approach to collect all of this. So it's not somebody's opinion or my point of view. It's actually data informed um, aspects of being a veteran that is very helpful to healthcare providers or to employers or hiring officials. So the kind of that's the genesis of the 15 things every veteran wants you to know. But the idea, I think I would set it into the conversation about the profession of arms because it is a profession. You take an oath, there is a calling. And so it's set apart from other sort of specific niche first responders, for example, who also take an oath, or medical professionals. But the idea of inculturation is that it's a value driven identity that reshapes how one sees themselves and enters into the profession and professes to live up to its values, and as a result changes the behavior in profound ways where one will be led to I'll do 14 and 15 just as a teaser, but that they would die for their country and for each other. And at 15, why would they do this? Because they believe in something larger than their ego. And so the idea of enculturation comes from anthropology and how communities come together and how they form and how they stay civilized or not civilized. But the profession of arms has been around, as you well know, BC and 80. And
Yeah, yeah.
so there's a lot to learn there in terms of this idea of enculturation and um, how a person would end up being willing to do these things.
Yeah, and I appreciate you highlighting that, and I know we'll tease out a little bit more about the video as well. But I would agree because and you know this very well. But in civilian employer conversations, I think most folks understand that a veteran will bring great work ethic, good character, and all those things. But I and it's hard to explain. I think you did it pretty well in just a short period there. But what I don't think an employer always understands is that most veterans bring with them just this whole different level of commitment to the team, the mission, and everyone's different, of course, but I think that's obviously, and you want someone who has all the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do the job that you are hiring them to do, or that that you need them to do. But there's just something very unique about that enculturation and just the values that they bring. I don't know. Can you elaborate a little? What's been your experience through the Employment Initiative Program with PsychArmor, and how have you seen what you can bring to them in your own experience?
Well, definitely deprogramming a bit from nearly 28 years of service. I mean, that's almost 3 decades of my adult life. And so there's some deprogramming that needs to be done, but there's some that'll just be there for the rest of my life. And I think that the transition is it's a two-way street. It's not that business or corporate America or nonprofits have to give to us, that we also have to relearn and fit into a new culture. Each of the services, the 5 services, Coast Guard is the one that throws people off from time to time, have their own subcultures, and there's different sort of what's normal, or what symbols mean in different places. Of course, the Air Force is aviation centric, so our subculture deals a lot with decentralized decision making, because in aviation, the person at the pointy end of the spear makes the decisions. So the importance of understanding military culture is lots of introspection for the veteran getting out of the military, to say that I have to know what the standard is. That's like the number one question. What's the standard? And that just means that's the bottom line. And how does this organization operate? Because we're heavy structure people. What's the process? Who makes the decisions? And so definitely there's a lot of team play, but there's also can be a frustration for the civilian supervisor with the veteran, because of those strong value-driven ideas. And leadership is not a position; it's a way of being in all services. And it's not about what rank you are or what job you have; it's about how you influence. So leadership is just a given, no matter what rank you are. And so that can be tricky, I think, for the veteran coming into a new system where they're used to having a level of influence and decision making that was decentralized, if that makes sense to you, Matt, because you
Oh
see
yeah.
veterans coming into the organization and maybe struggling.
No, I appreciate what you're sharing, because and you mentioned a few things. So what's interesting, and I've learned this about Dominion Energy, we have 19,000 employees across 20 states. So you could argue that our different business units are similar to, say, different branches of service. So
Sure, yeah.
generally speaking, we have amazing leadership across the board. But each area, each department, each business unit will orient and train their new employees slightly different based on their business or whatever the case. But bottom line is, you're right. not only does the military transitioning service member and the military veteran, not only do they have certain things that they're bringing with them and want their new employer to know, but the new employer needs to also offer some level of orientation, and it's not that the veteran needs any handholding by any means, but just offer some familiarity and orientation to the group, the role, the company, et cetera. And that doesn't stop. So, whether it's the first 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, that individual or even future veterans that you might bring onto your team, that's just an ongoing thing. And really what that ends up getting to is just the importance of employee retention. It never stops. I've been with the company for a little over 12 years. And, while it might be incremental, I have different needs now than I might have in my first few months or first year. But bottom line, I still need to have that good connection with my leadership and my peers. And so anyway, I really appreciate what you shared.
Matt, I think that you're doing this internal podcast so that supervisors and employees can learn more about military culture and more about veterans and military connected members. I think as an industry leader in terms of making that level of commitment to help educate your internal audience. The separate business units could be just like the separate services. And I think that I'll go to number one in the 15 things is that we're not all soldiers. And so for sure, there's some key things about watching that video. And it would be the number one thing not to say to a veteran, and like 5 questions you actually would say and get props from a veteran. And the idea that we're not all infantry and we're not all soldiers is certainly a kind of a 101. But for those who haven't spent a lot of time around the military, that's an easy kind of bee's nest to kick. And so, I think too that for those who are history buffs, 1986 was a big year for the Department of Defense because all volunteer force combined with the sister services will play nicely together with each other, use the same communication system, use the same batteries. And that we saw that happen in corporate America as well, is that the inter-service rivalry, it's just a non-starter. It's almost considered immature now to take that point of view.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I have to admit, so I was, in the Marine Corps, as you know, and my time was very different. I was in the reserves for 6 years, from 94 to 2000. It was essentially peacetime. I did not have to deploy, so my time in service was quite different. But one of the things that I'm very proud about is being a Marine, as is everyone about their respective branch of service. But being, the example is being a Department of the Navy. I learned very quickly that, no pun intended, the Navy runs a very tight ship. I did amphibious assault, and I learned in one of my first few times on ship that I needed to follow their rules. I had to listen to them and work with them, and it really didn't matter, what branch of service either of us were in. That we were working together, and that, again, that's like any civilian business. You have different departments. We all have to work together. We have to communicate effectively. But what I really appreciate you emphasizing, and I also got this out of the video, is the video is, it's a great video, the 15 things, as are the many other hundreds of videos through PsychArmor. But what's really important, I think, about this video is that it's maybe not fair to expect someone that was not in the military or is not military connected in some way to know everything. There's a lot of questions about translating military occupations and all that. But if someone, a leader especially, or a peer employee, had the chance to watch this video, I think you're right that they would learn some of these basics, and the veteran would just appreciate very simply, like, oh, wow, I appreciate, you understand there's a difference between the branch of service. You understand what we go through. You understand generally what we bring to the team, and I think if nothing else, that's really valuable for a leader and an employee or a peer to take away.
Just to maybe put an exclamation point behind that comment and that observation is that there really are some things you can do wrong when it comes to interacting with veterans. And we would be doing your Dominion Energy colleagues a disservice if we didn't mention it in this podcast. But one of the 15 things that's probably the most important takeaway is never ask a veteran, have you killed someone? The veterans who have don't want to talk about it, and the message is very clear in the video that that's just an inadvertent mistake that naively maybe a frontline supervisor who is new to the organization might inadvertently ask. So certainly educating your employees about that is very important. And then I think, well, if that's the problem, what's the solution? The solution would be to recognize that people identify differently with the military once they leave. You are a former Marine and you will always be a Marine. I'm a 28-year academic slash combat support, and my identity is being shaped by wounded warrior things. So, some easy law kind of questions are: did you serve in the military? Even if you might know the answer is yes. If yes, what branch? That says, oh, I know that there's more than soldiers in Army. And then what was your job? Certainly is a great easy way to start the conversation with a veteran. And then I think in terms of trying to get a sense of how much they're defined by their service is to say, how do you define yourself today now because of your military service, and how has your military service shaped you? So I think that's what I like about the video, is that it's practical. It does offer practical solutions and practical questions for those who don't know much about military culture beyond movies, which is like a very small fraction of infantry.
Well, you summed it up perfectly, and I really appreciate that you've teased out a few things, but you were able to hit some really important high points about not just military culture and enculturation, but the video specifically, and I hope that our listeners are understanding that there's so much that PsychArmor offers. And again, we have a partner page, which is accessible through our intranet, which I will share with folks. But anyway, I think you summed it up perfectly. One of the things that we'll do in this podcast series is we'll lighten the mood a bit as we exit. So I want to ask you a couple questions,
Okay.
and this is going totally left. But this session, or this section of the discussion, is called At Ease. So
Love it.
I'm just curious, because during this COVID-19 time, we're doing webinars and everyone's got some sort of beverage of choice. What's your morning beverage of choice? What gets you going in the morning and you can't do without?
Hands down, maintenance coffee. And when I say maintenance coffee, that means that maintainers might have brewed it 3 days ago. It's still burning on the pot. And so, the darker and the dirtier the cup and the mug, the better for me. So, coffee, 100%. I think it's
That's
number two
hilarious.
commodity in the world behind petroleum.
That's funny. Well, it's interesting you describe it that way, because one of the first things I noticed as probably an 18-year-old Marine when I was first showing up at my reserve unit was you're exactly right. They'd start the coffee at probably 5:30 in the morning, and then it just sat there, and it stunk so bad. But it was almost a smell that if it wasn't there, you're like, wait a minute, did someone not make coffee?
Yeah,
Well,
the smell of freedom.
yeah, my drink of choice is coffee, but I have to admit, after having been out for 20 years, I've definitely softened up a bit, and I have to go Starbucks in the morning.
Foo-foo.
So on that note, and again, you're in a process of transitioning. What are some things that you do, and maybe even now during this unique time that we're all going through, what are some things that you do to relax and unwind, and maybe even something that someone else might want to hear and consider as they're needing to take breaks and so forth?
I hands down, it would be mindfulness and meditation. it's a part of the profession of arms to calm the mind, is to stop the monkey mind. I think it's a part of healing from a traumatic brain injury is to learning how to reprogram it. But like the aerobics and jogging in the 70s, we weren't sure if that thing was going to take that whole fitness thing. I think that mindfulness and meditation and learning to um, uh, calm the mind when there's so much to be stimulated by in terms of information overload. So that's believe me, it's practice. It's like through yoga, it can be achieved, or it can be achieved just by 30 seconds of focusing on breath, so that I recage my gyros, which is a fighter pilot term about like if you get disoriented, how to get back onto a um, level sight and flight path, if you will. So meditation and mindfulness.
I'm glad you shared that because again, I mentioned our employee resource groups, and we also have a really strong wellness program. And anyway, the ERGs and the wellness program will work together to put out a series of webinars or other sessions like this, and to promote mindfulness and other types of wellness and breathing and chair yoga and things like that, because it really is important. It's easy to get caught up in whatever your day job is, whether it's the military, which is extremely demanding, as are many of the roles with our company and employees. So I appreciate you sharing that. Just to close out, if you want to share with the listeners, what is a way that they can find more about PsychArmor Institute? Obviously, I'll share with them in some notes where how to access our partner page. But is there anything that you'd like to leave with listeners as far as how to access PsychArmor information?
I guess the thing I would leave with the energy industry being so pivotal to, not to get too deep, but just about how the whole American experience works. I mean, the energy industry is the foundation of it all, and reliable energy and sustainable energy is to not forget it's a knowledge economy, and that those who are going to make it to the top and lead with the maturity and lead with the ability to see around corners, if you will, in this complex world that we live in, a digital age, knowledge age, is that to keep investing in and testing what you think you know, because if you think you're the smartest person in the room, it's probably time to go. And so I think PsychArmor is in the education niche, because that is the resource for the future. So, well, I talked about mindfulness and controlling the mind is very important for executives. It's actually a skill set I think that entry level employees will need. And the military has emphasized that a lot in the last few years, because we recognize mental health is not just a weak person's problem. It's a real issue. We are what we think about. And so I would encourage education as the alternative route to bad ideas as better ideas.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think we all know that in the military, we're always learning from day one, but we're learning leadership and the value of leadership from day one. What is PsychArmor's website? If you could share that with the listeners.
It's literally PsychArmor Institute. So just put it into Google, PsychArmor Institute, Psych, PSYCH, like your brain, armor protects you. You protect yourself through knowledge, Institute, and that means it's a center of excellence. And so because it's education based, it comes right up to the top of the Google algorithm.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm happy to answer any questions too. If anybody wants to reach out, Matt, have them my number 210-689-6379, and you can find me on the staff page. I'm happy to answer any questions offline if something's sensitive for one of your managers. So we're here to serve. PsychArmor is here to serve our dear partner.
That's awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and close out today's session. But Deno, I cannot thank you enough. When I was thinking about how to start off this podcast, which I hope will last for a long period of time, again, PsychArmor was the first to come to mind because of what you all offer, and frankly, I have enjoyed meeting you, and you really do bring to life everything that we need to learn and understand, but also just for sharing what PsychArmor Institute's all about. And so with that, thank you very much, and we look forward to interacting with you after this, and we hope our listeners enjoyed everything that you had to share.
Yeah, and thank you to your leadership at Dominion Energy for making this a priority and caring about all aspects of the military. I just salute the Dominion Energy team. Thank you.
That's all we have for today's episode. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the conversation. For more information about the company's military program, visit dominionenergy.com/military or search military program on the company's HR home site. To provide feedback for the show or to send us your questions, email militaryrelations@dominionenergy.com. A special thanks to Dennis McDade, Air Force veteran employee, for our theme music. Join us for our next episode when we have Lauren Lebrano from Paralyzed Veterans of America on our show, and where we talk about PVA's mission, their paving access for veteran employment program, and unique partnerships that they have with civilian employers and other military-connected organizations. Thank you for listening, and remember, actions speak louder.
I'll hold your hands and you hold mine. Connect and walk ourselves up to the top. Support and power develop till we can rise above exploitation and pain.
Welcome to General Understanding, a conversation for betterment for all employees to learn more about veterans, a platform for unity, embracing communities, perfect opportunity to value you and me, those who serve their country and fought for our rights, to the family and friends of those who sacrifice. This is dedicated to all, and by the way, I salute our armed forces every day as your
Hold
holiday.
your hands